computer. All right. So we're off at it. So Irvin, you're first with your
Yes.
Android devices.
So this article is about those folks who have ADB enabled and connected out to the internet for whatever reason. You can use the ADB.
ADB connected
Yes,
to the internet. That's
yes.
a terrible idea. Who would do that?
Apparently, people are doing it.
Well, no wonder they're getting owned.
Yeah, so they're getting owned, and their phones are being used for botnets. Surprise, surprise.
That's pretty ridiculous. Boy, that makes me think I should set up a honeypot. Set up Jenny Motion, turn on ADB, point it to the internet, and see
You
what I
probably
get.
will get a couple hits.
Yeah, yeah.
I found this one funny. Like, really? You're connecting ADB out to the internet? Okay.
Yeah.
You're not asking for people to come in and do stuff like this.
Yep. So it's like Kaitlyn?
Yep, it looks like me. So we have some more SolarWinds news. However, this is not related to the Sunburst malware. So of course, because of all the news surrounding SolarWinds Orion, a lot of security researchers have begun looking deeper into the software, and they found a bunch of bugs, including remote code execution vulnerabilities. So the malware authors didn't even have to inject their own code into the into the installer. What they could have done is just use some of these bugs to gain control of the system. And of course, because Orion runs this system, you just pwn Orion, you control the system. And so one of the issues, of course, is an old protocol called MSMQ, the Microsoft messaging queue, which essentially sends messages unauthenticated, and anyone can spoof them and send messages around. Fun times. Then you can also grab the database credentials straight off the hard drive, sort of like if you have PHP installed and they have the password in plain text in one of the config files. Yep, you can do that too. Go on.
It's too bad that the stuff is not open source, so I can't make a project out of it.
No, unfortunately, it's not open source, and it's really hard to get. But yeah, it's an old piece of software that just has a bunch of bugs, and there's also a FTP vulnerability in the software as well. So there's lots of bugs coming out that people are finding.
Yeah, this is kind of the thing about closed source software. It tends to be really out of date and vulnerable, and nobody can test it easily, so it lingers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really surprised about the Microsoft messaging queue. I mean, that has been out of commission for a long time now, and they're not even going to roll out a patch because it's deprecated. I mean, it's not a protocol anyone should be using anymore.
That's where you find a lot of bugs. Is some obscure thing that you forgot about 10 years ago that's still in there.
That's true.
Yeah. All right. And then Alan, okay.
Yes, Amazon is now contracting with a startup called Netrodyne to install cameras that will monitor the performance of their delivery drivers. Amazon, of course, having recently built out a significant delivery fleet. And apparently this system will use artificial intelligence to monitor what the drivers are doing and their driving performance. So they will be monitored on things like watching their phone or making U-turns or speeding, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this technology, I guess it's still cutting edge, but it's no longer the bleeding edge. There are actually other startups that have similar technology, and even some of the major car manufacturers have flirted with similar technology. But what I find interesting about this is there are really two big ironies here. First of all, Amazon seems to be very interested in preserving the safety or reducing the liability of the company and the drivers, which is a bit ironic given that Amazon has such a terrible record with OSHA violations in its warehouses.
Right.
The second great irony is that apparently we're not getting artificial intelligence for self-driving vehicles after all. Instead, we're getting AI that will monitor humans as they try to drive.
Well, that seemed like a step towards it.
Yeah, well, I guess it is a kind of step, but given the rate at which things are moving with the self-driving technology, as I understand it, it's going to be a while before we get that. But instead, we'll have what one could say is a more intrusive system for monitoring humans in the performance of their work. Now, this is not to say that it's a terrible idea to reduce accidents or to monitor vehicles and so on and so forth, but given who we're talking about here, Amazon, one has to be just a little skeptical about their plans and their policies.
Yeah, one thing I wonder is if this is going to be like the stuff where all they want to be is a slave driver and say you're taking breaks.
Right. And you know, other delivery companies like UPS and FedEx, and for that matter, U.S. Postal Service, they do not have this technology. And anecdotally, their drivers perform much better on the road. They do not have a serious problem with accidents. So you have to wonder, well, why is Amazon having this problem, and why are they taking a different approach? They could instead invest in better training, or they could not push their drivers to deliver so many packages. That would be another good solution.
Yeah, now I'm getting my groceries delivered by DoorDash like a lot of people, and it is really clear that these people are just racing along with rushing, no real idea what they're doing, not doing it very well. You know, obviously they're heavily overburdened.
Right, yeah. And so if these companies are serious about improving safety and customer experience, then they just need to hire more drivers.
Well, you know, but that's what somebody told me. If you get tired of Safeway having miserable delivery, go to Amazon and Whole Foods. And I imagine it will cost more, but they say they do a more professional job. I don't know. Anyway.
So yeah. I actually had a run-in with my first AI-powered vending machine, where it's essentially a cabinet, and you just take stuff out and it's supposed to charge you. So on my first go at it, I took out the app, unlocked the cabinet, took out Red Bull, and it failed to notice, and it just gave me it for free. So I think AI is awesome.
You know, I don't see any need for AI there. I mean, that's just a vending machine. It only does one thing. You don't want it getting creative and doing something different. I mean,
yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be more quote unquote, you know, friendly and user friendly, but
it
doesn't work.
Well, it's very user friendly, right? It gives you stuff for free.
Yeah, it's my favorite vending machine next to the ones at City College.
Yeah. Now that reminds me, when they first came out with the RFID tags for paying your toll, I got in the wrong lane and it said, "Do not stop, keep going." And I'm like, "What? Why?" Then it flashes, "You went through without paying." I'm like, "What am I supposed to do?" I mean, it told me not to stop. I was holding like my money, and what is this crap? And then they didn't send me a ticket, thank God. But you know, it was like Brazil, you know, stuck in some horrible machine that like gives you stupid instructions, then punishes you. Anyway, let's see what. Now we're down. Oh yeah, this one, Apple's new privacy nutrition. So this I thought was very interesting, and I thought I might want to make a project out of this. Apple is now trying to push privacy. They supposedly are going to tell you if apps are private. So they mark an app saying this app is not spying on you. So this guy found some system. I would have used Burp, but he found some other tool to use that measures all the ways the app is spying on you. Who's it connecting to? What kind of data is it sending? And he found, of course, that all those apps that say they're not spying on you, they're totally spying on you. And they're just lying. And that sounds like a great project, you know, very much in the spirit of the Android security audits would be to just measure how much apps are spying on you. So I'm
Apple
very interested to see that.
lying? Oh my gosh. Stop the presses.
Well, you know, and then of course the issue will be to read what they said carefully. Maybe it's not exactly a lie, but anyway, he has some suggestions for some new tools I've never used. And here he has the satisfying slime simulator, rated for age 4 and higher. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, it's spying on you, even though they say it's not spying on you. And on it goes. So this sounds like a fun project. I'd like to throw it in my Android class or my mobile class.
So is Apple essentially relying on the honor system from
That's what they said. It's the honor.
Yeah.
The that's been the standard in the business. This was the PPP, the Platform for Privacy Preferences, brought out about 10 years ago, was that companies have to say what they're going to do with the data they collect on the website, and they're considered a good app if they have a policy, but nobody ever checks to see if it's true. This is sort of like the Paris Climate Agreement. We have a lot of things like this, where we claim we've accomplished something, but all we've done is make people make a promise.
That's true, but I should think that Amazon has, Apple has the resources to actually monitor what these app companies are doing. And if they can check for malware, they should be able to check for violations of the privacy policy.
They might be able to, but remember, they got in trouble for that. They originally had Carrier IQ, where they were watching what happened on your phone, and then everyone said, Apple's spying on me, so they took it off. So, I mean, they could perhaps test it in their sandbox or something, but at the moment, I don't think they do. That might be coming. Anyway, I guess that's it for that one. And Liz, oh yeah, I remember this one.
I thought that was pretty neat. And also good to get the word out there. Story came out last week, but I just found it. Essentially it's about the Google threat researchers found this campaign that's targeting security researchers, and actually they've had some degree of success. Some folks have, admitted that they've even fallen victim to this, and it's pretty good. They actually went far enough to create like blogs and with technical articles and stuff like that to attach to their fake social media profiles that they're using for social engineering purposes, which, that's pretty good. That does add a little bit of legitimacy to those sock puppet accounts. And they've gotten a few people. So kind of interesting. Don't go visit any of these domains. They kind of helpfully listed some of the accounts and domains in use. Of course, those shift and change, but good thing to keep an eye out for. While we want to foster a collaborative ecosystem within the security research community, you also got to watch your back and always look out for who you are dealing with.
And they were North Koreans, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So they would contact you and say, I want help researching this malware or something. And when you run it, it would like own your machine, and then they're spying on you.
Yep.
Yeah. There was one a few years ago where they targeted people who had talked at Black Hat and stuff. This has happened a few times.
Yeah, and it wasn't even just like run this malware, because most researchers, I hope, are running those in VMs and other types of sandboxes, but some of these were even just like watering hole attacks where they'd link to an interesting sounding article or something, and then you'd go and get infected.
It's a tough one. I remember a few years ago, I sent a vulnerability report to someone and said, here's my page I put up explaining the vulnerability. He said, I'm not clicking that link. And I'm like, well, how am I supposed to tell you something? Do you want a PDF? I mean, how do you get through the day without ever clicking on a link? You mean your customers send you emails and you don't click on the links? How do you get anything done? There's actually no good answer there anyway.
Yeah.
All right. And then I'm good, back to Irvin. Okay.
If you thought being on a Mac, you are safe from the pseudo root privilege flaw that came out not too long ago, yeah, no. You're part of the group too.
The thing I like is they've got proof of concept code that's only like 5 lines long. I haven't tried it on my Mac, but I have to. That's bloody awesome.
Yep, there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it works on Mac as well.
But local privilege escalations are pretty much a dime a dozen anyway.
Right. But they're not you're not free from it.
They're not rare. You just have to keep your stuff updated if you worry about that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And then what?
Then
Oh
we
yeah,
got-
this one. This is like defund the police.
Yeah, no. So we finally have some data about defunding the police. So 6 months after they've defunded the police, we can see what a disaster it has become. And So we actually have some numbers. And so they looked at this program where they took police officers off the streets and replaced them with essentially support team members that are sort of like nurses or healthcare workers, called the Support Team Assistant Response Program, or STAR. And the numbers show it's a great success. So yeah, no, it is amazing what they're doing. So what they do is that if there is a case where there is someone who has mental health issues, instead of calling in the armed guards, they call in these healthcare professionals, and like no one gets arrested. They make sure that the people get what they need, and yeah, so there hasn't been a single arrest made by these people in the entire 6 months that they have been doing their work. And the police officers are just ecstatic because, when police officers are called to these difficult situations dealing with mental health, with no police officer is trained in mental health expertise, they never know what to do. And so having these people there to take care of these people who clearly need special help is just a miracle for these police officers. And furthermore, the money that and time that the police officers free from not having to deal with the everyday psychotic breakdowns and stuff like that go towards fighting crime. So crime's going down. The people with mental health issues are getting the support services that they need, and the police are just absolutely thrilled. It's like, I'm so glad to have these numbers because it really shows that this stuff really works. And so,
Yeah, this is great. This is like socialized medicine. If you'd actually solve problems instead of just punishing people, you could save a lot of money and time and everything.
Yeah, no. I mean, what I was not expecting was just how much the police are benefiting from this. Because I thought, we're defunding the police. We're taking people out of we're taking the police out of working in situations with mentally people with mental health conditions. Having them just focus on hard crimes. Certainly the police won't like this, but no, the police love it. Everyone is happy. It works. So, okay, let's do it.
I would expect that because I used to work a lot in coffee houses, and very often some mentally damaged person would come in and start making trouble. And then they would call the cop, and the poor cop would come in and just sort of make them move along. And it was no fun for anybody.
Yeah,
the cop didn't want to do that. They didn't know what to do. They just sort of kick them out and make them go to the next coffee house and bother those people instead. And it's just frustrating for everybody.
Yeah. The cops have no idea how to deal with these people, and the fact that that they don't have to anymore has been just a blessing for them. So that's great.
The people that do respond, they can put them in a treatment center or a halfway house or something.
Yeah, they can figure out where they need to go. A lot of the people are but they might be senile, for example, and just might be lost. And need to get to back home.
Yeah.
Some people might need to get institutionalized, but no one has been sent to jail. Yeah. So yeah, it's worked really well, and there's now numbers to prove it. So
sounds great. Yeah. And we're down to Alan's deepfakes. Yeah. Alan, you're on mute.
Sorry there.
Yeah, there you go.
Security intelligence firm Gemini Advisory has published this article on the increasing use of deepfakes for bypassing photo and video identification that's used in various banking, financial, and Bitcoin sites for authenticating users. Apparently, this came as news to me, but apparently some sites are now requiring the use of, are requiring users to submit pictures of their identification, government issued identification, and also sometimes submitting videos of them, of themselves holding up the ID or making a gesture or performing some other action that allows the financial site to verify their identity. So this is going way beyond passwords and SMS messages. Anyway, even though this is a relatively new technology and authentication process for these financial sites, apparently on these scammer websites and on the deep web, there's already a lot of discussion about how to bypass these. And surprise, surprise, the scammers are using open source tools that are widely available to do just this, such as Deep Face Lab and Avatarify. So this is just a single article. There's data behind this, but nevertheless, it's going to be interesting to see how this shapes up. First of all, if such photo and video authentication measures become more widespread, and how difficult they will be to bypass in the future.
So the idea is that when I first register an account, I have to give you a copy of my driver's license, and then you're going to compare that photo to me later?
Right, exactly. And then with some of these, you also have to, when you log in, you have to turn on your camera.
Yeah.
And then you have to wave or hold up 3 fingers or do something like that, so that the AI, presumably AI that's being used on their end, can authenticate you as the.
Well, you know, in the last couple of years, Microsoft and all the other big companies have totally moved out of facial recognition and said this thing doesn't work. It just makes more trouble than it solves.
Yes.
You know, I'm highly skeptical about this working well enough.
Well, yeah, and another issue is that with these deep fakes, even AI has trouble detecting deep fakes. So apparently, a lot of these deep fakes are able to bypass detection.
It reminds me of they used to have these machines in retail stores in, I think, Japan or China to make sure you're smiling enough. And there was this app that got a lot of scandal. It was an app for women only. So you'd put it on your phone and then you have to take a picture and then AI will decide if you're enough of a woman to use the app. Otherwise, you're frozen out. That one got a lot of attention.
Well, I think it was WeChat in China has already rolled out a payment system that uses facial recognition.
Well, my phone does, but that's because it makes a 3D scan of your face. It gets a lot more information than you're getting from webcam.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Well, yeah.
Anyway, so now we got, oh yeah, this one was awesome. This is a fun Twitter thread. This guy had a product and it is fantastically, amazingly, horribly insecure. And this product is the Footfall Cam 3 Plus, a counter to measure how many people are in the building. So it's like a license plate reader for people. So it looks at like low resolution pictures of who's walking by, and it counts how many people are in the building. And he found that it is just the garbage, the worst thing you would ever imagine. It has a bunch of hard-coded passwords you can never change. It's listening on a bunch of ports you can't turn off. It's just a Raspberry Pi. And they just lie about the components. And anyway, this is a really good thread for like vulnerability research. You hit the show this thread at the bottom of that page. It's got just a lot of cute things. It's running normal Raspbian. They claim it's a custom operating system, but it totally isn't. And the thing that's amazing is when you look at it, all they did was take somebody's desktop and just clone it. It's got like their music files and their personal files from their desktop on the operating system. They just cloned somebody's working desktop and put it in there with extraneous files and extraneous applications and everything. So it's pretty amazing. It's got just a lot of crazy things in there, like a counter counting something called sperm bank raw. They just have a developer like playing games and just copied his whole machine, called it proprietary. It's one of the more hilarious things. Anyway.
That is funny.
Well, this is why, you know, the fun part about vulnerability research, if you just do basic security tests, you often find these horrible things. Anyway. The KKK, I remember this one. This one. This is like poetic justice.
Yeah, I may have done a couple fist pumps and laughed out loud when I read this story because I thought it was pretty good. I definitely appreciated this. Some Israelis hacked the KKK and then doxed a bunch of their members, which is pretty awesome. And put out there, actually released the police records of one of the leaders of one of these hate groups, and turns out one of their leaders likes to sexually assault children. So
Yeah.
Usually I feel like it's pretty wrong to dox people, but in this case, I did not feel sorry for them.
Well,
even a
they're
little.
actually already in the sex offender registry. So
Yeah, I mean, that is publicly accessible info. So
yeah, I've looked it up for people and found them in there before.
yeah, right. So yeah, I thought this was pretty good. Seems like a good constructive way to spend time.
Well, technically illegal though, but I think if they do it from Israel, nobody in America is going to punish them.
But yeah, well, yeah. I mean,
and other ways of establishing legitimate access and being able to lock the user out, because
Something funny happened with the sound.
okay, yeah.
Guess it's okay now. Right. Yep.
Cool.
All right. And
number 3.
oh, secret evidence.
So this was an interesting read. In New Jersey versus Pickett, there was a complex DNA analysis happening that blamed this defendant as the person who was, according to them, was implicated in the crime. But then the defense team wanted to see how did the program point him out. And prosecution and the company at first said we don't want to say how, because it's going to give out trade secrets and whatnot. But the court actually ruled in the favor of the defendant, and they had to show how it happened. It's basically bringing up the whole Fry test out to let both sides see the evidence and see if the software made a mistake.
Yeah, this seems pretty standard. I mean, you're allowed to keep it proprietary, but you have to let the defense technical expert examine it, and then the technical expert will state an opinion.
Right. And at first they didn't want to do that, but then they when the court said no, you have to, they allowed just the defense team to see it, of course.
Which is why you have to honor your non-disclosure agreements. I mean, you do end up learning things that you're not allowed to disclose.
Right.
That's why I know the thing that troubles me more is a parallel construction, where they actually present lies in court. I'm amazed that's legal in America. That's a terrible idea, where they get something from like the NSA or the FBI from like an informant, and they don't want to reveal the identity of the informant or the methods. So they make up a fictional story about how they found it lying on the ground somewhere. And then they present that in court. This is much more disturbing to me.
Yeah.
But that does happen in America. So apparently that's legal. Anyway.
But yeah, it's good to see that that the defense is winning, at least in getting that out of, hey, you can't just keep everything secret, especially when it comes to things like software, because we know it can be biased, there can be errors, and both sides should be able to see it.
Yeah. All right. And golf.
Yeah, some golf news, everybody.
Oh, yeah, he did that. He hit a golf ball on the moon, didn't he?
Yeah, right. So Alan Shepard, Commander Shepard, went to the moon and hit some golf balls. And the way he did this, of course, is that there's a pole, like a telescopic pole that they would use to pick up moon sample rocks. And Alan Shepard hid a golf club in a sock, got to the moon, and threw some golf balls on the ground, started playing golf on the moon. That was a good time for all, and I'm sure everyone was happy to see that, even if it was not approved. But for decades, he's been saying, oh, I hit it for miles and miles, which of course was an exaggeration. But now we have photos, and we can see exactly how far the balls went. And it turns out that the first ball went only 24 yards, and the second ball went 40 yards. which actually is not bad. I'm sure playing golf in a spacesuit is difficult. So 40 yards is not bad. But the other thing you have to remember is that the entire lunar surface is essentially a bunker. So you're playing in a sand trap in a spacesuit. So 24 and 40 yards is actually rather impressive, even if it's not miles and miles.
Well, I would have believed the miles and miles. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, maybe if he hit the ball with an actual golf club, not a makeshift golf club, and did so in less restrictive clothing, you could get miles and miles on the moon. But
Yeah. Another thing debunked.
Yep.
All right. And okay.
Yes.
Shortage of
So,
chips.
keeping with the theme of societal collapse, there is currently a major shortage of chips that are required by auto manufacturers for their cars. And it's so significant that it's actually leading to the idling of plants. And this shortage is forecast to persist for years, literally years.
What's
This
the
is
problem?
because the major manufacturers like TSMC and UMC are at capacity. And they had forecast a lower demand from auto manufacturers during the pandemic, but demand for cars has been stronger than expected. Meanwhile, the Trump administration's policies to ban the use of American IP by certain Chinese electronics firms has meant that certain Chinese manufacturers that were supplying chips now cannot do so because of IP restrictions. So this is a major crunch that's affecting not only the auto industry, but other electronics manufacturers too. Sony has announced that their PS5 gaming console will be missing their delivery targets significantly because they too cannot get the chips that they need. And it looks like
make sure it's actually updating properly. So I update that test.
Another funny sound.
yes.
Here.
So it looks like this problem will be continuing for a while because these chips used by auto manufacturers and others use much older processes in the 50, 60 nanometer range. And these manufacturers such as TSMC really don't have any incentive to upgrade and expand their old manufacturing lines because that's old technology that's years and years old. They want to keep pushing the envelope production in the 5 nanometer range or even 3 nanometer range. So it's unless policy regarding American IP used by Chinese silicon producers is modified, it's unlikely that we'll see any relief for this and for some time. And it also means that the collapse OS is right because this does indicate that maybe the first shoe to drop in the collapse of the global supply chain.
So if the Biden administration was to reverse the Trump ban on technology partnering with China, that would help, right?
As I understand it, yes, it would significantly.
But from what I've heard, that is not likely to happen. They're inclined to be hard on China too.
Yeah, I don't know what the Biden administration's policies are regarding this IP in China because Trump's policies were never very nuanced in the first place, and I don't know what the Biden administration's stance is on these.
Well, I think after what China did in like Hong Kong, America is inclined to like be more hard on them now. So I don't suppose we're going to see any close collaboration in the near future.
No, but it's going to end up hurting American industry significantly.
Unless we start making chips here again. I mean, maybe we shouldn't be importing everything from China.
Yeah, I understand that Samsung is talking about building a factory in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
But, I don't think it's going to help the auto manufacturers. Certainly not going to come in time to help the auto manufacturers.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Maybe they should make dumber cars that don't need so many chips. Anyway.
Yeah, I wouldn't complain about that.
Yeah. Anyway, so GameStop has got a lot of people's attention, and I'm the old fashioned. I've had people, Scott Galloway says, everyone just says, yeah, you're just a boomer. And I got some of that when I said, you know, when you invest in a stock, you want to get like 50 times earnings. Your company has to actually make money. You don't just buy it because it's going up and expect it to stay up. So they have a nice chart of the price. There it is. That's the whole story. So it's really worth about 8. And a bunch of people on Reddit decided what would be fun is to, we'll all buy it and the stock will go up and then we'll laugh, ha, ha, ha. So they did that. And then after a while, it went up to 400 and then everybody sold. And now it went back down and they're like, hey, I bought it at 400. It went down. Who could have seen that coming? Hey, this is not fair. Screaming and yelling and suing and saying, who told me it was okay to buy this? And, you know, this keeps happening. This is the sheep wandering in to get slaughtered that do not understand investing, don't understand that if you puff something up to 100 times what it's worth, it won't stay there. Anyway, so hopefully they'll learn to knock it off. But the thing is, of course, somebody tells the story. I bought it at 10 and I sold it at 300. So you could get rich. And, you know, you have the same chance of getting rich as you do betting on roulette in Vegas. If you make a habit of doing that, you're not going to end up rich. But people always want to believe that. Anyway, so, okay. Wait, SolarWinds. Oh, another one. Okay.
Yeah, I actually sent you the wrong article. The original source was from a Reuters article that's even better than this one. It's linked in there though, from the Wired article. But yeah, the latest on that is that it wasn't just the Russians. There was a separate Chinese campaign happening at the same time that they've just kind of more recently discovered. So, you know, that makes it a lot harder when you're trying to when you're trying to isolate and mitigate these threats, when you have multiple sources coming at you at one time and different sets of malicious activity happening on your network. So they really got them good through this, and it's pretty good when you know, theoretically there is no coordination between the two, though of course we don't know. It's pretty good when you have double espionage campaigns overlapping at the same time. I'm sure it's not the first time this has ever happened, especially like considering the way things were during the Cold War years, but this is pretty good. So you know, they're just sort of peeling back the onion layers on still finding out how bad this is.
So what does SolarWinds do that makes it so great that everybody uses it instead of just using something from a company that actually audits their security like RDP?
You got me. I don't know if it's aggressive marketing. I don't know if it's just pricing. I always tend to lean towards its aggressive marketing campaigns, because I've seen this happen time and time and time again. It's still happening, where you'll have decision makers in a company that are easily swayed by marketing and do not listen to people who are on their team telling them like, hey, this is a bad idea for numerous technical reasons. They just go for it anyway. So however, I can't answer your question why it's better than the other solutions out there. You know, the salient point though here I think too is that you can't just buy a product, implement it, and assume all your problems are over. You know, this still continues to be a massive issue where people are not vetting third-party integrations or solutions that they buy from vendors, because they just assume everything's fine, even when it's clearly not.
Yep. Well, you really need there ought to be like an independent security auditing company that can like rate these things. I don't know if there is, but if I was at a company, I would pay to have like a third party audit the security of this thing before I implement it.
Supposedly, Singapore is working on implementing some kind of scheme like that. But as far as I know, there's nothing like that here, and nothing planned.
Well, we
And
clearly need that.
yeah, like a underwriters laboratories or something for
Yeah.
security.
Or even more in depth. I mean, if you just hired a real security researcher to spend a week analyzing it, you'd be a lot better off.
Yeah, yeah. So
A few $1,000 could save you a major disaster.
seriously,
Yeah.
this was probably preventable. So.
And then we
And then the
got,
last one's just an extra bonus, kind of hilarious story about a really good internet joke that an artist pulled off in a couple weeks ago. By she put up like a satirical website that was clearly satirical, saying you could, if you were a famous person or an influencer, you could get like a physical blue check mark for your house, sort of like the blue check marks on Twitter. But a bunch of people signed up and tried to actually really get one and pay $3,000 to get one, which she was like, I did not expect that people would actually go for this, because it was totally an internet joke, but people did.
then she should obviously make them and sell them. How is she not doing that?
She's going to make one, but she's not going to sell it for $3,000. One sort of interesting twist to the story is the workspace she's renting in San Francisco allegedly was originally utilized by a craftsman who used to make these plaster shields back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, to sell to homeowners in certain parts of the city. And she's in the same space, so she's actually gonna make at least one and
Well,
put it.
I would make them and sell them for 3,000. I mean, this is obviously an opportunity, like Bernie's mittens. Some woman made Bernie's mittens and everybody wanted them. And she said, oh, I don't make them anymore. And so she partnered with like a teddy bear company, and they're manufacturing the mittens. I mean, when people want stuff, this is America.
Yep.
You make it and sell it. What part of this is complicated?
She's done like a couple pretty good jokes before. Like she made this one app that was called Dial Up, that was supposed to like connect people based on their political views or interests, or whatever, like a party line sort of.
Yeah.
But this was a pretty good joke.
We've already got them too. I tested some of them. There's like the Donald dating app where Trump supporters can date other Trump supporters. There's a bunch of stuff like that. Because nowadays politics is such a big deal in America. I don't even want to talk to someone who's on the other side. So there's special dating services just for people on your side.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. Any more comments?
The Mexican government is actually a wide and strong.
All right. I think I'll stop this one.